So today I am joined by Maurice Harvey-Hall, a mindset architect, meditation teacher, and spiritual mentor whose vision is to impact 1 billion lives in his lifetime. Maurice is a registered mental health nurse who's trained in mindfulness-based therapies like acceptance and commitment therapy and draws deeply from the Taoist philosophy, Buddhist psychology, and neuroscience. With over 25 years' experience in practice and meditation, has lived his own experience and has broken free of a 15-year cannabis addiction by grounded, embodied understanding of the inner and outer worlds that we'll be exploring today. Welcome.
Hey there. Thanks for the return invite.
You're so welcome. I loved our last chat. I really felt as though something shifted in me. And I think, by osmosis, when you can feel and hear someone's story and where they've come and the triumphs and the victories that they've achieved, it kind of rubs off a little bit. So I'm very grateful and I'm very blessed to be in this conversation again. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited, curious, and yeah, curiosity seems to be the thing that's most present with me today of where we're going to go and how it will be expressed, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So I guess on your background, which is this extensive kind of spirituality piece, this
Yeah.
integration. I guess for those of you that don't know yet, can you share, I guess, the key moments in your journey that led you from, I guess, that conventional psychology into internal family systems and this global awakening piece?
Yeah. Okay. Hmm. I guess initially my journey into um, seeking an understanding of the fabric and nature of reality, basically. It was introduced to me through Taoism and Buddhism. And I found that through Buddhism, the way that they looked at the mind and I guess, the techniques that they had within meeting the mind, I found in Western psychology as cognitive behavioral therapy.
Wow.
I went, oh, I've already been doing this stuff, and now in the West they've got a name for it, and there's a whole theory about it. So I went, okay, this is interesting that the Eastern guys are talking about something one way, and then the Western guys are talking about it in another way. So it was lovely to see the marriage of the two. So Taoism was introduced to me early, and then I followed through with the Buddhist path in their teachings. Then from there, when I was going to uni and I just finished uni with the nursing degree, and commitment therapy was just starting to come to the forefront as something else other than cognitive behavioral therapy and as an adjunct to all of those things too. And so then I saw that ACT was very much a mindful-based therapy that focused more on the acceptance of your thoughts rather than labeling thoughts as helpful and unhelpful, which I find is interesting because that creates potentially even further judgment and further shame that I continue to have all of these unhelpful thoughts. I need to get rid of them.
Hmm.
So that's where CBT, the traditional model, in a sense, was suggesting. Whereas ACT was go, hey, whatever these thoughts are, just notice them and notice if you're fusing to them and you are the thoughts, and notice if you are fused and noticing and you are them, can you create space and just notice that there's a thought there?
Yeah. So being a little bit subjective to the emotional
Yeah.
feeling of it.
Yeah. And this noticing and this, in a sense, this awareness process that was being, I guess, in a sense, fostered and built and as the foundations of it. So you could notice thoughts, you could acknowledge them without judgment and just allow them to be there. And they would have context. So having context would suggest they actually have a purpose. There's a reason why they're there, rather than we need to get rid of this because it's got no value.
Right.
Yep. So that was lovely. And I thought, oh yeah, I've found the jewel, in the lotus. It's acceptance commitment therapy. And I was very much moving with that. And I'd noticed a lot of other Buddhist philosophies and psychologies moving into my awareness and mainframe of how I viewed the world. And I noticed that I had quite a good balance of inner harmony.
Hmm.
Yeah. even though I had dilemmas and conflicts, there was still a pretty good balance of inner harmony, which I then started to notice would reflect into my outer experience. So here's some of the Hermetic principles: as above, so below, so within, so without, cause and effect, relational. Yeah. So it was sort of, okay, well, it fits into these particular views. Yeah. And then I found internal family systems. Well, actually, I didn't find it. My beautiful partner, initially introduced me to polyvagal theory,
Yes,
right? Which I rejected initially. I went,
me too.
no, what do you mean? Because I'm used to this top-down approach. Everything can be fixed via the mind. Or if we're having an experience, it's because of the mind. So if that's the cause, and if we place attention on the mind, then it'll fix this. When in actual fact, no, hang on, it's a bottom-up approach.
Mm,
And it was also de-shaming in a sense as well, recognizing that, when you do go into overwhelm, it's not because you can't handle things, it's because it's actually out of your window of tolerance. And this is a safety mechanism.
yeah, we're seeing a lot of it.
Yeah. And now I'm in dorsal. So of course I'm in dorsal, so I don't want to move. How do I get up to ventral if I'm in dorsal? Well, if I just start to move, then that might shift my state. If I then get angry, if anger appears, oh, there's movement. How I shift up there. So Polyvagal was really interesting to me. Here's some more teachings, for foundational stuff. And then Ali brought to me internal family systems. And when I found that, I went, hang on, this makes sense. So uh, I felt comfortable with the model, and I then started to practice it on me.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then I started to notice particular things. And because of the awareness that I have, I was really inquiring into it and then going deeper into the IFS model and learning that way. And then Ali's also a therapist, IFS therapist. So we were able to bounce off each other and speak to each other through a parts lens, which I find
Yeah.
really significant in couples and couples therapy or intimate relationships when you can speak from a parts lens. And then even there, overlaying nonviolent communication by Marshall Rosenberg.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a nice suite of philosophical templates and conceptual models of the mind, so we can relate to ourselves and our outer world. Yeah.
Just give me a second.
Yeah.
So I guess that's like you've literally just built brick upon brick, integrated that in your own world, and gone, okay, yes, that's taken, that makes sense to this point, until there's another sort of layer that's opened up, and you're like, okay, so this is expanding on it even further, particularly taking into that kind of lizard brain, if you like, where we're all in. I think a lot of us are in this fight or flight space post what the last 5 years have created and how we've responded to our environment. Was there a particular moment where you, like in this journey that you've kind of embodied, was there a particular moment where you sat down and you said, I just can't treat the mind in isolation from the body and the bigger picture spiritual element?
Yeah, okay, right. So always been spiritually led. We can use those words, I guess. There's been a drive, which I find interesting. That for not everyone has that drive initially.
Mm.
Some people find it later, or some people just don't have it. So I always question that one there. So loved the top-down approach, loved the Buddhist philosophy, cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance commitment therapy, mindfulness-based, all that sort of stuff. Now, when we started to get into mindfulness-based, we then started to move into the body, because there was a recognition that there's something in mind and there's something potentially in the body as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So then there was a bit of a joining of the two there. So, okay, mindfulness practice, this is interesting. Then we had or we had polyvagal. So now it was really showing these different states and where you could feel them in the body. The internal family systems, when we look at it from a parts perspective, that the parts are actually like part of the meditation where we say meet your parts, we're actually feeling into the body. So where in the body, around the body, or outside of the body is this part located?
Mm.
So now we're starting to see, oh, I've got the shoulder pain. And like for me, like it's interesting that the way that if I put a side profile, my neck sits forward. It's like, it's like the turtleneck.
Yeah.
And I've been working on it, wanting to, bring it back, bring it back. And it's interesting because it represents a part for me, right? And that part is the one that's looking, it's seeking.
Wow, interesting. Me too. I do that too.
Good. Yeah. And I had negative association to it because it's like a hunchback. It doesn't look good if people say, hey, stop slouching. Or my mother used to say that to me too. So there's a part that judges this part of me. Yeah. And so then there's the part itself that just seems to be with this forward neck type thing. So lately I've been noticing other people with forward necks and noticing how I'll have a judging part, but then also noticing how there's a greater compassionate part to going, hey, this is the way that this person is. This is the way that this is. Can we be okay with that?
Yeah.
Having to change it. So where I'm going with that is that there seems to be, from a spiritual lens, there seems to be a Maurice that is having a life that has a story attached to his life. Yeah. And from a spiritual lens, there's this perspective of I'm consciousness having a human experience. The human experience is Maurice.
Yes.
And he's got a mind and he's got a genetic code which expresses itself through this body. Yeah. And he's in this world where there's an environment, he has these series of experiences. And Maurice, he identifies himself with the story he tells himself about his history.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I thought, okay, this seems to be for everybody then. Yeah. And spirit, consciousness having a human experience. Well, I'm not the mind, I'm not the body, I'm not actually Maurice, but I am the awareness that's watching Maurice's experience unfold.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
now it's kind of going into almost like the observer.
Yeah. And which is a classic mindfulness skill. So
Mm.
even if we just tap into mindfulness, this observation, it's a non-judgmental observation of the present moment,
Mm.
which continues to unfold, unfold, unfold. Yeah. And I was just listening to Alan Watts, and one of the things he was saying is that when you come and sit down, if you believe that you're the person that walked through the door, then you're stuck in believing that this is you, because the past is a series of events that are linked together to then create a history. So, and that's what the mind does.
Yes, definitely. And the stories that we tell ourselves, I'm this, I'm that, you
It's
know.
not like, "Oh, I want to be this. When I'm this, I'll be this."
Yes, yeah. This thing needs to happen in order for me to feel satisfied, content, and or happy or
Yeah.
healthy or whatever, you know.
That's
Yeah.
right. Even the art of manifesting, the law of attraction, I'm attracting this into my current nows. So
Mm.
what I started to realize is that, okay, from a spiritual lens, from a consciousness lens, I'm not any of this, but I'm the observer of it. So I get this real beautiful honor to be the observer of Maurice living his life. Yeah. And as consciousness, I might even be able to, through, I guess, quantum physics observer effect, that if I'm consciousness, the observer, if I'm observing Maurice, then Maurice's experience is influenced by the mere observation of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and it's how I'm observing. So if I'm consciousness, which is love, and I'm observing Maurice with love, I'm influencing Maurice with love.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I took my lunch outside yesterday, and as you've described that, I had a picture because I was sitting on this tree stump, and I was down on the ground. There's all these black ants, and I said, "Look, guys, I'm having a conversation with them. I'm going, look, there's plenty of food for you, but just don't bite me." So, just setting the boundary, don't bite me. And I'm looking down and I'm sort of sprinkling some of my lunch down in small pieces. So, they don't have to work too hard to take it away. And I thought, God, this is how God must feel, right? Or consciousness must feel like looking down at these ants just in busyness, like they're all kind of just doing their thing. But I just sat there for about 20 minutes and just literally thought, wow, this is what is happening right now. And I'm kind of watching that. That must be how it must feel for the creation and to watch us. But what you've just said is that you've actually flipped it to be yourself, watching yourself or observing yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And what I've noticed is this life is relational. So we're in a world of duality, and where there's duality, there's, once we even have the concept of I, that means that there is an other.
Yes.
To say there's an I. So it's beautiful that duality and is relativity and it's relational. So what I'm noticing within the internal family systems approach is the parts relating to other parts. It's a
So that
relational thing.
can, can we go there? So we IFS, so internal family systems, we've kind of spoken a little bit about it, but if IFS is a map or was a map of the split mind, how would you explain IFS in simple terms?
Well, so when we talk about split mind, I'm not too sure what your point of reference is there. From a IFS lens, it'll be called a poly mind.
Right, got it. Okay. I think I've
Yes.
interpreted that one.
Yeah, so there's many parts to it, poly, yeah, versus mono, which is it's just one big mind. Um,
Okay.
Sometimes we call it the ego, that sort of thing. This IFS model would also be somewhat similar to schema-focused therapy. So you have different schemas, which would be different ego states. So there's ego states or parts. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have polymind, and within that polymind, it's a series of parts and let's call it another part called self. Right. So there's self, and then there's parts. We actually use the language, part of me didn't want to come today, part of me wanted to stay in bed. Part of me is really anxious about that talk that I'm going to give. But the other part of me says, this is really important and we should do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we naturally segment ourselves so we can describe our experience.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we then started to really hone in on those parts and be quite specific, we would then start to notice that, like for me, I have a people pleaser part. I also, what's linked to that people pleaser part is guilt.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm also might have, we could have self-sabotaging parts. Yeah. We can have the cheerleader parts. Yeah, you can do it. We believe in you, just a little bit more. We have inner critic parts. I also have, what else would I have? I have an avoidant part. I have a really insecure, anxious part.
Mm.
And that insecure, anxious part might have many topics to be insecure about.
Yes.
Yeah. So see how now we're starting to, in a sense, delineate and going, oh, there's a lot that really makes me up. Yeah. And so from Part's perspective, they actually they live in fear. Their base mode is fear, and they need to do things to feel safe.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So just consider your own behaviors and your own experience. What do I do that makes me feel safe?
Mm.
So we could even look at OCD as a part.
Yeah, it's a control. It's what I can control, and my body wants to control
Yeah.
something, and so that could
Something, so
be.
then there's this perception of safety. Yeah.
Mm.
Perfectionism is a part from an IFS lens, or there'd be a part that uses the characteristics of being a perfectionist. So we can then start to look at, and each part would have their own narrative. Makes sense. They're very specific. I believe I'm this versus you can't do that. See, they're different. So there's its own narrative, its own dialogue. It'll have its own belief system. So the belief system, the narrative will be reflective of the belief system. It'll have its own feeling state. So for me, when I feel guilt, I feel it in the lower solar plexus.
Mm.
Whereas if I feel grief, it's usually in the upper chest and quite tight. If I feel the need that I need to speak about something, I'll get a rising, burning energy coming up. My esophagus is going, speak now, now's the time. So I'm starting to track my experience, so you've got, dialogue, narrative, feeling state, obviously behaviors. So that's going to come into it. We find that each part will have its own value system. So, you know how loyalty, we see loyalty as a really important value. That's a great value, yeah. But sometimes we can compromise our own safety and sanity because we're loyal to a concept, loyal to an ideology, loyal to a person. Yeah. So see how, but if I stay loyal, I'll be a good person. So see how there's I'm fearing that I'm a bad person, so I'm going to use loyalty to show that I'm a good person.
Yeah. So fear is almost the underlying current
Yeah.
in the
That's where
negativity of the poly.
yeah, well, that's the power. That's the power.
Mm.
Yeah. It's like anger. Most people get angry because there's an injustice.
Yes.
All right. So see how anger, the value of anger is injustice.
Yeah.
And
So I'm not heard, I'm not understood, I'm not,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
misunderstood, whatever it is, you know, or there's a wrongdoing over there, there's an injustice, I need to speak up about it.
Mm.
So we don't judge injustice, but we judge anger.
Yeah. It's essentially a behavior as a consequence of injustice,
Yeah.
or, yeah.
Part of the part's ethos then.
Mm.
Yeah. So we've got these little mini me's all running around within us. And depending on the circumstance, who we're with, so the environment, the set and the setting, particular parts will appear. So it's sort of like who's driving the bus today? There's a beautiful a beautiful poem by Rumi called The Guest House. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll share it with you. And, you know, it's basically, which guest will come today? Will it be a malice or something like that that sweeps the place, you know, full of everything, but it's here to show you something. It's basically saying invite each guest as an honor, each arising as an honorable guest because they're here to show you something.
Each part of ourself, like part of that poly that you're talking about. Yeah. So invite the awareness, I guess. And so
Yeah.
is that kind of what you're saying? You're going through the day, kind of observing your own versions of what's coming up, and then you're associating, you're not even making a judgment as to whether or not they're good or bad. You're just being curious.
Being curious because each has got information for you.
Mm.
Right? So say anger does appear. Oh, hello, anger. What are you angry about? There's an injustice occurring over there. Oh, okay. Yeah. Um, what would you like to do about that? What would you like to say about it? You know, and so I can get angry at the injustice or I can get angry at myself because I'm not doing something about it.
Mm.
So see how anger can really, it's got a lot of information for you. Whereas if the way we look at it is explain your anger rather than expressing it.
Yes.
Yeah. So from a parts lens, we would say, can you speak for your part rather than from your part?
Got it.
Yeah. So from an acceptance commitment therapy lens, can we create when we're fused, we're in the content. I am my part. When we're diffused, we're in context. I'm noticing that there's a part.
Mm. And
So
so I guess is ego a part?
so the parts are a part, and what I'd probably like to say is that
Mm.
uh, so the other part, because it sounds like parts are all bad. So Dick Schwartz, he's the founder of it. He's written a book called No Bad Parts.
Okay, wow.
So parts aren't bad.
No.
They're actually safety mechanisms.
Okay.
Okay. So anger doesn't allow you to be walked over.
Mm.
I'm going to stand up for myself. Yeah, thank you, anger. That's beautiful. Yeah. So, because anger and courage, see how anger and courage, sometimes we get so angry that it creates the courage to speak up.
Yes.
Yeah. So on the other side of the penny, even though they're the same penny, is self energy. So we have parts energy, and I say parts energy because they feel like, like it doesn't feel nice that I need to do something to be heard. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's quite a physicality.
Yeah.
Quite often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I can notice so I can track it. Yeah. So the other side of the coin is self. So self energy is characterized by the 8 C's. Now, primarily, you already feel safe. So you don't have to do something to feel safe. And so the 8 C's, let's see if I can remember them. We have when you're calm, when you're creative, when you're curious, when you have courage, when you have clarity, when there's confidence. That's 6 there. Mm. compassion, and then there's one more C. So there's the 8 C's, and I can send you the details for them too. So whenever we're in these states, that's what self-energy is. That's like equanimity, a neutral point. Okay, I'm actually safe within my own experience. All right, so I'm not firing off reactions or anything. I've got enough time to respond. I've got enough time to hold space for people. I'm curious and inquiring. I've got great compassion, and I'm already calm. Yeah. So we would well, we notice the difference between being self-led when I'm calm and I'm safe versus parts-led when I'm not safe and I'm in fear and I need to control. Yeah. Now, imagine the two different nervous systems. SNS, sympathetic, is there going to be fear? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fight and flight. So I need to, yeah. Versus, parasympathetic nervous system, I'm already calm. It's okay. So even if we look at it from a nervous system perspective, the more we are in, being self-led, it's better for our nervous system, reducing the cortisol, reducing all of the cytotoxins that are happening within the system. We're also more open with our perspective. We're more open with our heart. Our relationships are going to be different. So that they're better or worse, it's more so that they're going to be different. And then there might be a preference. I'd prefer to have more of these experiences than these ones. Yeah. So when these let's call negative or the parts start to appear, I can go, oh, I'm recognizing that there's some fear in the system. And this part wants to take over to allay the fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually the part, though, is quite extreme in nature. So anger can't really tone its anger down. Not very good, because that's not part of its makeup. Its makeup is to get angry.
Would anxiety play into that as well?
Anxiety can also be a part, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. So what then what can influence is that self-energy is actually going to talk to parts or anger. Go, hey, what's going on, little one? Yeah, okay, you're concerned that there's an injustice occurring. Okay, what would you like to see? Right. You'd like us to talk about that, or at least acknowledge it. Cool. Um, can I help speak for you? Yeah. So in this way, what we're doing is that the part is now actually being observed. It's being witnessed. And the witnessing process is really important. And do this if you want to if you want to improve your relationships with anyone, witness them. And witnessing is a process where I see you, I hear you, and you matter. Imagine if
We all did that.
yeah, like imagine if you could be witnessed in that way
Yeah.
every day. Oh wow, I matter.
Amazing.
That's incredible. Wow. And thank you for hearing. Thank you for the time of listening to me in a non-judgmental way. Yeah. I didn't have to defend myself. I didn't feel attacked by you. I was just witnessed. Imagine the insecure parts that you have, the avoidant parts, the angry parts, the overwhelmed parts. Imagine if they knew that there was something in the larger system that they could go to be witnessed.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd feel a lot more confident in themselves. They'd probably circle back to the C's, that C space. Even talking to children, I can imagine through this lens could be really empowering for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. And so what primarily happens is we're creating a greater internal harmony. Yeah. And we actually feel compassionate for those parts that are in fear. Yeah. We have great empathy for those parts. And when those parts feel seen and heard, then they're open to an older, wiser part of the system leading. Because up until then, they don't know. They think that they're doing the best thing. They don't know that there's something else in the system that could lead. So they're having to do that themselves. And most of these parts, they say that they're frozen in time. So my people pleaser part was created when I was 8 years of age. There was a particular experience where people didn't like me for the way that I looked. I looked different. So I had a negative cognition of I'm different and that's not okay. Yeah. And so that part, the people pleaser part, went, you know what? Don't be different. So don't do anything for yourself. Get really good at reading what other people's value system is, and you become that. then you'll always be, always have a sense of belonging. You'll always be connected, and you'll always be seen as being valuable. Yay! Now I'm invited in. Now I've got friends. Now I've got a sense of, now I'm safe.
Mm.
So the people pleaser part, well, it in its extreme, it becomes the martyr. You just give, and then when you're the martyr, another part comes up called resentment.
Yeah.
Yep. And so resentment's job is to go, hey, people pleaser, stop giving ourselves away. Because now we're resenting ourselves for giving ourselves away. Initially, the resentment is towards another. I can't believe you. Why don't you treat me in the way that, I'm doing this all for you and I don't receive that anything back. I just keep on giving and giving. Life isn't fair. People aren't fair. So the resentment is towards something outside of oneself. And then we then start to turn around and go, hang on, that part is resenting that part of me that continues to compromise its values so it can be connected.
So these are pretty deep concepts.
Yeah.
And I think about when I was at the epicenter of my own journey of health, where I was chronically unwell and I wasn't rational and I was in fight or flight and my nervous system was really dysregulated. I'm not convinced that I would have even been able to take in these conversations because I was so dysregulated that these concepts would have been quite abstract.
Yeah.
So, how are you finding the simplest way for people in overwhelm to start to step out, like macro view, and start to have some curiosity with these reactions? Because
Yeah. So possibly uh, sometimes when one hasn't had the availability to practice, it's probably best to inquire into when I'm not feeling overwhelmed, because it's hard for me to feel anything other than overwhelmed when I'm overwhelmed.
good question. Yeah.
So what I could suggest is that we're pretty good at knowing what we'd like to get rid of in our lives. I don't want to be so overwhelmed. I don't want to be so sensitive. I want to be so angry. I don't. So if you can identify what you don't want in your life, then that's a good place to start.
Yeah. Okay. That's good reframe. Yeah.
And so if I know what I don't want, then if I think of the opposite, it might be what I do want.
Yeah.
So that's a really good way to reframe things. Because, I sometimes say, well, what do you want in life? You go, I don't really know.
But I know what I don't
What I
want.
Because we're really good with that. So if I wanted to say I wanted to get rid of jealousy, all right, I'm really sensitive about my partner and I'm feeling jealous. You go, okay, cool, right. Rather than trying to chop it out and saying I'm a bad person because I'm doing that, just go, okay, what would be the role of jealousy? What would be the function of jealousy?
Keeping someone safe.
Yeah, and then you go, okay,
Mm.
well, how does it keep you safe? The jealousy is that I'm so jealousy. See,
Is it to
there's
come
a
down to self-worth? Like,
yeah, well that's right. So it would be jealousy is about not being hurt, I guess. Yeah, please. And whenever we're jealous, we're sort of saying, hey, can you please not do that? Or, like it's trying to control. So it's potentially then afraid of being hurt. So there'll be a fear to it. So what's its role and then what's its fear? So you go, okay, what's the fear of jealousy? Well, the fear is that I'll be alone. The fear is that I won't be loved, that sort of thing. So you go, oh wow. So when we can then start to recognize the part as actually having a function, it's trying to keep me safe. It's trying to keep me safe from emotional turmoil, and it's actually concerned that I won't be okay if I'm alone. Right. So we can then just start to reframe it a little bit and go, oh wow, that's really interesting. That experience that I have that I normally want to push away, there's actually some value in it.
beautiful.
Yeah. Now that's a really just a short reframe that you can do just by inquiring into. And then you go, okay, what about anxiety? Anxiety is definitely there to keep you safe.
Mm. Yeah. Fear of
Yeah,
the future and, fear of the unknown or, yeah, just.
yeah, overwhelm. So I used to find so overwhelm, polyvagal, going to put you into dorsal. Overwhelm was when I had too much information and I didn't know what to do with it.
That's a good one.
So it shuts me down. I can't deal with anything. And now I've got to go to sleep. Like my overwhelm used to put me on the sofa and I'd have to sleep for like half an hour just to try to catch. Yeah.
So you've sort of, I think I might know the answer to this question, but there's a bit of a theory happening around something called global awakening. And what I feel like what you've just described, this awareness, this observation, the removing the duality, just sort of letting the waves come and being aware of the waves versus just making it right or wrong and creating the separation. I feel like this is, in a way, like this awareness piece and this curiosity piece is actually the turning point for global awakening. Do you feel that there is a rise of consciousness happening from where you sit at the moment?
Yeah, the challenge to the answer is this, that there's could be a cognitive bias, and because I'm in this field, then I'm naturally going to see more and more of it. I'm not necessarily hanging around people who hmm, that aren't becoming more. Actually, there's a couple of people I see that don't. Bless them, of course. And it's that's another whole conversation. Yeah, I personally think that there's something happening that I feel people are remembering.
Mm, who they are or what they're
Yeah,
part of.
yeah, they're connected. There seems to be some
Mm.
type of deeper connection, wider connection. Uh, we do have a lot of the old systems in a sense that are we could say that they're being revealed, which I think is just a matter of time anyway. You'll see more and more of it. The challenge with that though, see how our parts get really angry when things get revealed as well.
I think if we're viewing it through the lens of separation, the only thing that I feel we have control over is ourselves in that manner. Like it's,
Yeah,
and so yes, things are being revealed, but we also need to take our responsibility for the decisions that we make in our life, and we're making them from the basis of the information that we have at the time.
yeah,
And I think if we become like what you say, if we're recognizing the patterns of fear that are underlying these decisions that we may regret that we made or may not, then we can actually look at it and go, okay, so if this was to happen again, where would I, how would I respond to this situation
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
next time?
Yes. And do I have the courage to do that?
Yeah, and if I don't, then that's okay, because this is like, it's not about, in my opinion, being right or wrong. It's just we look at things once we've experienced them and go, oh, that's really interesting. And I think there's been a big turning in the last sort of 48 months. Well, that's how I feel. I feel even with myself, I'm kind of going deeper. I'm going into the next layers of, this polyvagal theory, really doing a lot of nervous system work. And that's allowing me to feel safe to actually open the door to look at some of these stuff from childhood, which may not be serving me any longer. But it's been a very long time in a journey to get to that point, of this maturity, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, look,
Yeah.
there's many stories, and I'm I used to love getting caught up in stories and rabbit holes and conspiracy theories, and there was a lot of energy that would go into it. And what I'm noticing now that nowadays, and as you say, can we just come back to our own experience and what's actually happening here? So whether it's that story, that person, this, organization, government, whatever it is, what's happening within me now that I have that information?
Yeah.
Sometimes our parts, and so our parts actually live in separation. Yeah, that's their ethos, and that's the way that they're supposed to be. And it's the self energy that is the reharmonizing of it. So with this internal experience that I'm having, I'm reharmonizing, and it's impacting what's happening externally too. So we potentially have an opportunity to reharmonize consciousness by becoming aware of our parts internally and externally, because the parts which are manifest externally are all of the fear-based processes, the fear-based templates, the fear-based organizations, you know. So there's a micro and a macro that can happen here as well. I do feel that there is a shift. I feel there's more and more people remembering, becoming more conscious, becoming more aware of what in whatever their own experience is, but probably more so them. I think that's where the key is that the more that you can become aware of you, you are adding to the collective awareness of us as a whole as well. I do I do like the way like um I'll just say the word like. I do like the way that we can meet our experience through acceptance commitment therapy, through internal family systems, through the non-judgmental acceptance of what here is present. And what here that is present is actually here because it's supposed to be here.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some really beautiful non-dual teachings where we can recognize when we are out of the now, when we suggest that there's a better now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's that's the key for probably my practice, probably in the last, I don't know, 4 to 6 months, is being more present with what is now, and rather than mind going to future and then past. And then also the observation of how the mind layers judgment onto experiences, and gives it, in a sense, a meaning. It's beautiful that that's what we do as humans, and that's what we do is with the mind. We attribute meaning to things, just being aware of the meaning that we're attributing to it, and recognizing that we're giving it meaning. It doesn't intrinsically mean that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so
I
good.
found that helpful.
I might need to write that one down.
Yeah, that's a t-shirt one, that one.
Yes. You get a few looks and people will be like, eh?
What do you mean? Exactly.
So good. That's so powerful. I feel like we could continue this conversation for hours. And I love what you're doing with these principles, because what, in essence, you're slowing things down but in order to quicken things up, right? Because essentially when we do go in, we can really we have to, I feel like we all need to go through these processes. It's kind of part of what needs to happen next. And the faster we do it, the faster, there'll be that joy, the love, the peace, the internal peace that we're all kind of seeking, because now all of a sudden we've not attached judgment to anything. It's just compassion and love, and we're sort of operating more out of those C words that you talked about, that persona, that self persona,
Yeah,
which has got its place in the world. It knows that it's connected to all things, and it is love.
yeah, yeah. And just to add to that, like if I was consciousness and I wanted to create the qualities of consciousness by wearing a glove in the mind, it would be via those 8 C's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it suggests that, consciousness is compassionate, that it is calm, there's courage in it, there's creativity, there's connectivity. So there's all these beautiful characteristics of that, which from Richard Schwartz's perspective is the essence of self, the essence of who we are. The fear protective safety mechanisms of the parts were created at a time where there wasn't enough self energy that was present. So our parts are actually holding space enough. So the ego, in a sense, is keeping us alive until consciousness becomes aware, which is very similar to this raising consciousness of the planet at the moment, because it's the 3D ego that's been running the show in a sense, but now it's held it safe enough now for consciousness to rise, and then we start to remember and 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 maybe act or move from that place rather than from fear and separation.
So if people would like to go deeper with these concepts and the work that you're doing, like
Yeah.
how do they find you? What are you doing next that you're excited about?
Yeah, well, we've got a meditation center here in Townsville. It's called Inner Light Meditation Center. We've got a website there, innerlightmeditationcenter.com. You can go there. You can contact me on that. I've got some of my services on that. We do breath work. We do the internal family systems. I also have mentoring programs. We've had quite a few young men come on recently, which I find once again interesting that these young ones are waking up at this time. They're remembering, and man, I wish I had someone like me when I was, a young man. That would have been so much. I don't know if it'd be easier, but it would have been more supportive. Would have felt more. I don't know. I was so alone when I grew up, so I guess that's with this type of thinking. So yeah. So I've got all of those things. It's probably just best to contact us through the website. Not really on Instagram that much, but more so the website. That'd be the one.
Incredible. Thank you so much for your time. I feel really blessed to have been able to explore these concepts with you, and I love what you're doing in the world. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to the top of my head, and just keep being amazing and
Yeah.
shining your light.
Thank you, Sally, and I really appreciate the opportunity to reconnect with you again, and over this time, and then just be able to, for both of us, to be continuing on this path. Finding what it is that we need to find for ourselves, and also being that for others too.
Beautiful. Thank you.